Hey everybody, I'm Elysia. I am the host of Horsepower Empowerment Through Connection. And today I have the great privilege, after many months of trying to get this lovely lady on the line, to show you, introduce you, have you listen to the magnificent stories, magnificent, see words already, they're so hard, of Eleni Argy. Now,
Thank you.
Eleni and I got to laugh a bunch about our names because people both mispronounce our names all the time. We had to practice a whole bunch before we started, and I love getting to hang out with cool people. But Eleni, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. It's an honor. I'm loving watching what you do and all the stories that have unfolded from all the other people that you've interviewed. And I'm just blessed and honored to be here as well. We finally got here. We've been talking about it for months.
We have been talking about it for months. It's like two ships passing in the night, like all the time. Wait, was that what you meant by like the time zones? I love talking to people in Australia. So Eleni is in Sydney, Australia, with she's like the wind. And wasn't there like a song? She's like the wind.
She's like the wind. Yeah, it is.
It's such a beautiful voice.
It's one of my favorite.
And she's like the wind, Equine Experiences in Sydney, Australia. Now, see, Eleni is a very interesting person because she's actually from Boston originally. Boston. And Bostonians are an interesting group of people, but it doesn't stop there. Because not only did she go to Boston, she actually went to college at Harvard, which is super cool. And she traveled to Greece and then back, like all over the place. And she's been to Hawaii, and then she landed up in Australia. But I digress. She has all these wonderful stories to share of her own accord. So, tell us where did it all start with horses?
Oh, wow. Okay. It goes way, way, way back. Not into my childhood. I didn't have horses as a kid. I adored horses. My cousin, who I absolutely adore, who was like a sister to me, loved horses, was obsessed with horses. And I think I got the bug from her a little bit because I just wanted to be like her. So anything she likes, I like, we're talking childhood. But I didn't actually, start riding or have interactions with horses until I was in my 20s. And then it was a journey from there. I think the minute they come into your life, for some people, it's just, this is it.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody I was interviewing before, she said that she has the H gene.
Yeah.
You're just born with the H gene, and then like horses are just bound to be in your life at some point, and then for forever.
Yeah. I think, horse people, there comes a point where your heart just goes poof, and it's this open-ended energetic sphere that just invites in goodness, and horses are attracted to that from wherever they are on the planet, no matter how far they are, and they just go,
it's true.
See you. I got you. I'm gonna find you.
Speaking of far away, didn't you start your journey like really when you were in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. How far do you want to go back with this journey?
As far back, it's your story, as much as you want to share.
Okay. So, people do ask, and it is a tricky question always for me because it's very, very personal. People say, how did you get into horses? And horses found me, and I found horses because I was seeking different avenues to heal from my own trauma. So my bits of my story are out there. It's on my website. I had, the first 20 years of my life were filled with very traumatic experiences that I went through in my family life. And my dad was an alcoholic, and that was very challenging. And that was all we knew was, violent outbursts. And so in my childhood, I lived in this hypervigilant state, as you do when you're in a situation of domestic violence and family violence. And as a teen, I got a bit more outward with it, as you do as a teenager. So from internalizing it all, I went to just, okay, I'm out of here. I actually fled, really. When you're a child, you can't flee, you're stuck in your situation. But when I was a teen, it was like, what can I do to get myself out of here?
Right.
But I was very fortunate in many ways in that well, my mom was a very stable person. My mom was an educator. She was a teacher, ended up as a professor in Greek University in the Department of Education. And so she was an innovative educator. So, people ask me about programs and stuff that I create, and there's just so much crazy creativity in it. And a lot of that I got from my mom. But she also had very, very strong values.
Yeah.
Was just such a straight up person, human being with integrity.
Yeah.
And so we had this dichotomy, right, of these two parents. And I'll tell you an interesting story. So if we talk about horses, right, when I was about 7, we had animals, we had dogs, we had all sorts of animals, we're outdoor family, we spent a lot of time in nature. But when I was 7 or 8, I went on a school excursion to the local police station and to see the mounted police. And
right.
And they put us as little kids, they plopped us on, these horses.
Oh, wow.
And this cool police officer just took you for a stroll just down the driveway, basically, and back up again. And so here I am in front of all my classmates, and this, police guy just kind of plops me up on this horse. I've never told this story, by the way. And here I was on this giant animal, big brown thoroughbred, as they often are.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly the feeling of freedom, of being unharmable, to take one of Carrie Lake's terms that I really love, being up on this animal and nobody could hurt me. And wow, if I gave him a kick, I could run off and nobody would catch me, and I think part of it was also, I was surrounded by police officers and I felt really safe.
Yeah.
And so this guy just walked me down the driveway. I just remember, that feeling of, she's like the wind. It was like, freedom, safety, security. Even though you're on the top of this giant animal, there was such a sense of groundedness and security in that experience. And it was a 5-minute experience, but it left its mark on me. And, I'd ask my mom, can I do horse riding lessons? And we had so much going on, I did dancing and French lessons and played piano and all this other stuff. So horses, it just wasn't going to be in the mix at that point in time.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I was like, you know what? I got my own money. I'm going to go do some horse riding lessons. I was 23, 24. And I went and did these group lessons, and it was cool. And it had nothing to do with riding. It just was like, ooh, the smells in this barn. And
oh my God, I love the way the barn smells.
Right. Oh, everything that was tactile, everything that
the leather and oh God,
everything that was sensory, right? Everything that was sensory about being around horses. And then, then I did go on a project. I got my degree, and the crazy thing was, I was such a high achiever, even though we had so much trauma in my family. My mom, every night there'd be an incident, and my mom the next morning would be like, you wipe those tears, young lady, and you go to school and you get straight A's. This is my mom, just like school teacher mom. She can't have her daughter, not doing well at school. And it was hush hush about what was going on in the family.
Yeah.
DV was not a thing, was not spoken about. And we were this upper middle class family, and my mom was very well respected in the community. So for anyone to know the horror that was going on behind the scenes, for her was just complete and utter shame.
Yeah.
And so she was like, you go get straight A's, young lady. And so, and that's exactly what I did. And school was my safe place. I got straight A's as a kid. And then in high school, I did pretty well. And by the time I got to university, that was how I could show what a good girl I had been all my life, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you experience DV, no matter how much of a good girl you are, that crap is still happening behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
But it became my default. Academics kind of became my default. It was a safe place. I loved studying. I still love learning. So I got that hot little degree in my hot little hand, and I just got out of there. I didn't want to be in the States anymore.
Yeah.
It was literally like a wild horse getting out of the environment that was so charged with experiences and memories that were not pleasant, and somatic trauma just being stored in my body.
Yeah.
And I needed to get out, physically get out, and to find a place that felt safe. So I did a project in Hawaii, and it was a cool, cultural resource management project. It was awesome. But the amazing thing was, we'd trek across the lava fields, and our managers were like, you could do the trek, which was cool. I love hiking. Or we got a couple of horses if anyone, wants to go on horseback. I was like, what? Horses? I just put my hand up. Me. I had no idea really how to ride. I did 5 riding lessons. I was like, I'm great with horses. And so they teed me up with this horse that was so beautiful. And we didn't do that many rides. The rides we did were so much fun, but they showed me where she lived in a paddock by herself. And I was like, this horse has no company? And they were like, no, this is just kind of where she hangs. And there's a little barn. And so I was like, can I just go see her? And they said, yeah, whenever you want. She's just there. And I was like, okay. So every day, before work, after work, that's where I was. And I'd turn up with my carrots. And you know what? After I don't want to say years and years, but different attempts at therapeutic experiences, right? Talking therapy or different kinds of therapy that I had tried, that single-handedly, that horse, her name was Anui Nui, which meant rainbow. She gave me everything, and I gave it all to her, and I cried and I laughed, and it just was all about the sensory experience. I still to this day don't even know what I offloaded, but whatever came out in that paddock for a year, every day for a year, for hours and hours after work, that really was the core of my healing, the beginning of my healing.
Yeah.
And I knew that I did not want to physically go back to the environment where I was, even though I adore my family, and my dad and I have a good relationship. Even now, people often ask me, okay, so how about your dad? I mean, that's a whole other story, but we still have a good relationship because I always defaulted to a place of compassion and forgiveness, even as a kid.
Yeah.
But when you default to a place of forgiveness and you still allow yourself to be victimized, that's different from I forgive you and my heart is always open and I'm inviting you in to show up with your integrity. Right. But if you don't, I'm going to find a way to protect myself.
Right.
So it needs to be this interaction of, everybody needs to feel safe here. And when I don't, I'm going to do what I need to do to feel safe. And so, so this horse set the stage then for just, this type of healing that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Australia from there. I was like, okay, what is the furthest place on the planet that's away from my memories, my traumatic crap that happened?
Did you know anybody in Australia, or were you just
I knew one person. I knew one person, and I came out here, and it was like, all right, this is far enough. This is good. This will work. And one of the first things I did was buy a horse. And then it just kind of went from there.
What kind of horse did you get? Did you get a Brumby?
No. I got I would love to have a Brumby. No, I bought for 500 Australian dollars, which is like 250 US, whatever it is. It was like 1 week's pay at that point. A 4-year-old thoroughbred who had failed dismally in every race he tried to race. And it was the quietest thing, and he was God's gift he was the equine therapy god, right? And I had no idea. They were like, this horse is 500 pounds. Like, I'll take him. I had no idea about horses, no idea what I was buying, no idea what I was getting into. And the first day I bought him, they said, you should just take him out for a little trail. And it was sunset. And I was like, but it's going to be dark soon. Really? I should go in the dark? And they're like, he's going to be fine. You guys are going to be fine. And I just settled him up, and I went on this little trail, and the sun started going down, and I will never forget how gentle and kind he was. And we had the best journey. He taught me so much about just who I was and why I was here on this earth.
Beautiful.
Right? And it wasn't about fleeing. It was about staying here right where you are right now. And so, yeah, and then the journey kind of went from there.
It's really beautiful. So did you start She's Like the Wind at that point?
No.
Like the Wind?
No. So I then began a career. I did sort of cultural studies when I was at uni. I was an archaeologist for a period of time.
Oh, awesome.
I lived in Greece, right? I'm Greek, so, you know. But I did, it was a bit of an educational journey. I worked on some Native American sites. For me, it was always a spiritual journey. But I realized when I was in Hawaii that all that material, cultural stuff is amazing. But the human element in the now was often missing.
Yeah.
And I always had this element of being an educator. It was built in me from my mom. And so I would always find myself teaching in some capacity or another. So I ended up working in a university. Actually, I taught for about 6 years. The first 6 years that I was here, I taught in cultural studies at one of the universities. And that was a brilliant experience. And then that evolved into working in other kind of vocational colleges and blah, blah, blah. And the cohort of students just kept somehow getting younger and younger and younger. And I had the opportunity to work in a program with high school kids that were at risk of disengaging from their education. And a lot of it was sort of mental health support and family case management, but the actual work was face-to-face with these kids. They'd pull out the girls separately and the boys separately, and you did all these innovative, fun activities. And I was the queen of innovation. I was like, yeah, go ahead, let's do this. Right? And there were times when, and then I was doing my horsey stuff on the side, and then I was doing the stuff with the kids on the side. And there were times when I was like, hey, kids, we can do a field trip here. Why don't we play with horses and just kind of see what happens? And I just always wanted to share my horses. I had two. I had Vic, the original thoroughbred, and then I bought a crazy, what do they call it? Chestnut mares, right? The whole stereotype of a chestnut mare being loopy. So I had this loopy chestnut mare, and I think it was the two sides of my personality playing out. Anyway, we won't go there. Right. Never mind. But it was like the two opposite horses, but the kids loved them. And so I was like, even at that point, it didn't really register. I knew that I was in a healing experience for myself, but then watching, and I just wanted to share that. It's like, hey, let's hang out with horses. It was that simple.
Yeah.
But then it was probably about 12 years ago that I had one of these alternative education programs. So I stayed in alternative education for quite a few years. And somehow, again, by some miracle of force of whatever, energetic, enlightenment, they placed me on a 200-acre horse property.
Wow.
With a herd of 40 horses. And there were adjusted horses that were boarded, you say in the US, boarded horses. And there were a bunch that were abandoned over the years that, had not been claimed, like people that couldn't pay the bills or whatever, and just left them there. So there are a bunch of ferals, and then there may have been some stallions that had some, I don't know, it was this random herd of horses. And here's my classroom. And there was a fence line, and we had a back gate and 200 acres out here and these horses kind of roaming free. And so I would try and teach this alternative experiential curriculum of
Right.
science, maths, you know, English, blah, blah, whatever, is all a bunch of team building, experiential, crazy, crazy fun stuff. But then we'd have these horses popping up along the fence. And I was like, you know, to my managers, can I just maybe try doing stuff with horses and the kids? And they're like, oh yeah, we've got our insurances are out the wazoo. You do whatever you want. We're covered. And I just was, oh, cool.
You're like,
So
best day ever.
best job I ever had. And so I created a couple, we had girls and boys separate because that's how the schools would send them to us. And I literally created a program that I still run for men and boys. With the boys, I did the cowboy code. And with the girls at the time, it was the cowgirl code.
Awesome.
And we literally, you know, we had little cowboy hats, and it was basic horsemanship. Some of the Monty Roberts, a bit of join up, some of the Pat Pirelli, you know, the games, and, you know, being like a horse, you know, what is this like? And how would you treat this horse kindly and respectfully? And we had lovely facilities. And so that was when I noticed the magic again between kids and horses, and kids are my thing and horses are also my thing. But when I put these two together and I stood over here watching, I was like, oh my God, that's actually what happened to me when I came into contact with horses.
Right.
And so example, you know, young people with ADHD, really dysfunctional, dysregulated behaviors, many from trauma backgrounds, many from similar backgrounds to me, would just stand next to a horse and within 2 minutes, just calm and regulate. And it was interesting because I experienced it myself, but when I was able to watch it from here, it was a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is a thing. What is this thing? And so I was like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to keep doing this because it worked. But that was when I started to research, you know, what is this thing? Why are horses so powerful when they interact with humans? And that was when I realized I wasn't creating this innovative stuff that I made up out of my head. It was, wow, equine assisted learning was a thing, and equine therapy was a thing. And it was fascinating. And so I literally started just creating stuff and gifting it away. I never took money for any of the programs that I ran for kids. It was just my gift. I wanted to gift this because it was a gift that was given to me by horses themselves. And I just wanted to create a space where they could feel comfortable, where they could be in their body, where they could have awareness of their environment, where they could be in nature. And we could do fun stuff with horses, right?
Yeah.
So She's Like the Wind, to get back to your question, I really only created that, you know, properly in a proper structure about 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And working with, you know, our communities and community service organizations and youth services and mental health services and councils, and, you know, just trying to help the kids in our community. Started with kids, but, you know, we have adults coming through now. We still have the cowboy code, which is amazing. You and I were talking earlier about your men's forum, and I think that's brilliant. And we still do women's groups, and we still, you know, but I work a lot with the LGBT community as well.
Nice.
We work a lot with community service providers. So, you know, mental health practitioners or youth workers or social workers, anyone who's experienced sort of compassion fatigue themselves. So we do a lot of self-care stuff for them, and first responders and families. I do a lot of family work because that was where I struggled. If my family had any kind of supports that included the whole family, I think our journey as a family would have looked very different.
Yeah.
So I feel really, really passionate about, the kids, of course, but if you don't work with those parents and carers, then you're missing a very important piece of that support puzzle.
Absolutely.
So anyway, there you go. There's a, you know, in a nutshell.
No, that's great. In regards to the different populations that you work with, do you notice something, they do work with them with grief, like suicide prevention and, you know, like the heavier sort of things? Do you find the horses help with that?
Yeah, we do. So in our team, we've got 4 senior practitioners. So I'm qualified in equine assisted learning. My co-facilitator, Elle Levy, who I've known for the whole time I've been in Australia, she's a registered counselor. We used to ride together. She would take the crazy mare and I would take the quo.
Nice.
Right. But then we created these parallel journeys of equine assisted services and practice, kind of parallel. And so she's qualified in equine assisted therapy, and she's a registered counselor. And then we have a non-equine senior level counselor on our team. So we can pair up, you know, myself, for example, with him and do a joint session if needed. And then we've got a research psychologist with a lot of hands-on experience with animal therapies. So between us, the 4 of us in our senior team, we can address the deeper issues. We do get, you know, I've talked about this a lot. The referrals we get are often for, you know, the lighter outcomes. And what I do when I'm only on my own, I try to stay within that scope of equine assisted learning because I'm an educator. But you come in with, you know, parents and carers in schools identifying the soft skills, right? Respectful behaviors and competence and team building, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what's under that surface of that iceberg is usually very, very deep and complex trauma.
Yeah.
So we try to identify a lot of that in the intake process. And I try to filter the referrals between myself and Elle, or then myself and our other counselor, or, you know, whatever that might look like, so that we can address what needs to be addressed in an appropriate way. And we work really closely with the other community support. So we check in with the family and what resources they already have. They might already be linked in with a mental health practitioner, or, you know, whatever other supports they have in the community, the schools, the school counselor, or whatever. And so we work really closely with the families and the other supports as well to provide that sort of holistic, you know, holding of the space. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah,
and I think it's great that you have a man on your team, because there aren't a lot of men.
We got 2 men. Yeah.
Wow, look at you go. Is one of them an ES as well as an MH? Equine specialist and mental health practitioner.
So Ben Rocket, who is our research psychologist, he has a PhD. He has a doctorate degree in child psychology, I think, and has done a lot of equine assisted, animal assisted work experientially and research. And so, and he's going to help us, he's in the process of helping us get some outcomes for the work that we do.
Fantastic.
And for some very specific populations. So example, you know, our LGBTIQ plus community of young people and families. And I'm getting a lot of referrals these days for 13, 14-year-old girls with eating disorders and disordered eating. So I've got I'm certified in supporting young people with eating disorders, but again, it's a very, very specialized field. So we work there with the nutritionist or the psychologist, like it's.
No, which is great, because you don't hear a lot about that population being served.
No.
Like, there's just like speckles of them here and there. So I'm always really happy to hear that that's being served.
Yeah, and I work with, and I do have another job out in the community, and I work with trafficked women, so modern slavery and human trafficking. So I bring these women here to get support as well. So there's very specific.
Thank you so much for serving them as well. Yeah, it's so incredibly important. I mean, more awareness needs to come to that.
Yeah, but to again circle back to your question, and you can stop me because I go off on tangents.
Oh, no, you're fine. There's so much good information here.
But in terms of us having men on our team, males on our team, it's so important. I love having a gender balanced team, as you know, our field is very female dominated.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And there are other amazing men that we, you know, are rising up or have been. We've had a lot of male horsemen who have paved the way and been pioneers in the horsemanship element. And then the human element has been coming in to that world. But we have brilliant men here, you know, Dean Mile in Victoria, who works with veterans here. He's just does the most amazing work. And the guys we've got on our team, I feel very blessed to have.
That's
men on our
fantastic.
team. Yeah,
And you guys have
mix.
a very famous gay cowboy in like you're the Australian version of Hollywood, right?
What do you mean?
I'm forgetting his name. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm like, how do you not know who he is? Now you're gonna have to get
I don't
off
know.
of
I probably
here.
do if you mention the name. What are the what does he do?
He's like a stunt writer, and he did a bunch of things, and I think like was Brokeback Mountain like based off of him? I feel like he's written a book. He's like the famous picture in Australia that they always see with the cowboy laying on the ground with his horse.
Man from Snowy River? No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
We have to Google that. I don't know.
We're gonna have to put it up later. I feel like I'm failing. I've talked to so many.
So he's in Hollywood at the moment?
No, he's Australian. He's Australian. He's an Aussie. But he came out, and so it was a big deal because like he was an Aussie and he was famous in movies and like horse movies, and he was a cowboy for like all this time, and he did all the stunts and all this stuff, and then he came out that he was gay, and he like wrote a book. And that's why I was bringing it up, because it was like he was afraid like coming out that people were going to look down on him in the industry because you know there's so much like machismo and stuff like that. But I'm sure Aussies have a different.
I live in my little bubble sometimes. Forgive me. Yeah.
I'm like, I thought for sure you would know who it was, so I didn't have to like look bad that like I brought it up and didn't know what it.
No, that's okay. You thought I'd jump in and save you there, but I can't. I'm sorry, funny. I can't save you from that one.
Oh, it's like a book. I looked it up. Okay. I'll put it in the description. I'm like, should I look it up now while you're talking? Like, anyways,
we can find it. Yeah,
I'll find it later and put it in the description. So that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And my buddy Saskia is gonna give me such a hard time. She's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I tried to get him to like have you interview him, and you can't even remember his. Can I remember his name on an interview? I'm like, no, it's fine. It was that one. I'm so good with people's faces, but names, like just in general, they just like fly out of my brain.
I know. I'm the same.
It's just one of those funny things. I mean, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, folks. It's okay. Like it's not to like shame or invalidate ourselves right now. It's okay. That's so funny. But so you created your own model of equine work.
So So what I was trying to do, I was, you know, when I realized this was a thing, and I wasn't the only innovator that incorporated horses and kids and whatever, you know, I was researching different models and ways to get trained and qualified and certified. And it took me a very, very, very long time to find something that fit, to find something that was accessible, because not much was offered here in Australia.
Yeah, I've heard that. You guys are kind of catching up.
We were playing catch up. And then in the more recent years, when there were things being offered, you know how energetically sometimes there's just some brick walls and you go, how can I do that? And then just something slams that door and you're like, for sure. Okay, try to go this way, try to go that way. And so my journey in sort of figuring out a model that fit, it took a much longer time, but I was still offering, you know, what I thought was an effective way, right? And it was trial and error, and I was thankfully had the backing of the organization, the youth services that I worked with. And some of them even shut the doors because, you know, kids and horses, that's high risk. Yeah. And even though none of it was horse riding, you know, for many organizations, it's like, well, if something happens, you know, that they're liable. But luckily, when I worked on that 200-acre horse property, It was run by the Sisters of Mercy, and they were so sweet. And Sister Mary Louise had her little house right next to my little outdoor classroom. And the horses would just come up, and she was like, Eleni, I love everything you do. And she never said no. I was like, are you sure? Is it okay if I do this with the kids, and this with the horse? She's like, we've got insurance out the wazoo. You do whatever you want. And no children ever got hurt in any of the trials of activity.
Making of this
no,
film.
no, our children were harmed in me trialing stuff, because I had been a horse person myself. I was a horse owner for that many years prior. So,
yeah,
you know, and safety is paramount, and the activities were so gentle, and the interactions were so gentle, because when you work with kids, you do need something to spark their interest as well. You do need to balance hanging out with horses with fun stuff to do. And so it was me trialing, you know, what works that's fun and creative. What can we do together as a team? What can we do with one person, and you guys observing and telling us what you observe, you know, and just playing out all the different scenarios. And when I look at now some of the beautiful books and workbooks and activity books that are out with equine assisted learning, equine assisted therapy, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that ages ago. And it's cool, and you can create as you go. And so I just created my own way of being, and my own way of implementing creative activities that work well with kids and that engage kids. And oh, lo and behold, they work like a dream with adults too. And with corporate groups, and with, you know, with whoever. And when people get stuck, there's always a way.
What do you feel like some science behind it?
Science. Ooh, science. I'm a science nerd.
Tell us about the science.
Yeah. All right. So this is a big story too. For me as a kid, growing up as a child with trauma, you know how that feels in your body, right? Within your biology and within your somatics and within your energetic structure, you know what feels good and what doesn't, right? And what should be happening and is a healthy way to be, and what shouldn't. And so as I grew up, I mean, I had a huge high level of somatic awareness. We were a very active family. My dad was an athlete. So from a very young age, we were out, we were exercising. You know, I was a dancer. We were in our bodies a lot as a family. Interestingly enough, my dad taught me how to be in my body. But when I was at university in my 20s, again, it was actually my dad's new wife, my stepmom. She was a massage therapist and was exploring all these different alternative therapies. She introduced me to Reiki, which is an energetic healing practice. And I started practicing Reiki actively and became certified in Reiki 1, Reiki 2, then Reiki 3 when I came here to Australia. And that happened side by side with me having horses in my life. And I brought this, and I thought I always do this because I always thought they were two separate things, right? One was a very, very deep, energetic, sensory awareness and balance and coherence technique that you can practice yourself on your own body, that you can extend to other people, into the space around you. Reiki over here, well, guess what? That's what horses do naturally, right? So I was doing had these two parallel things in my life. Again, I didn't question how it worked. It worked. I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. Oh my God, this feels amazing. Right. And, you know, and it was, again, just a journey of pulling in other tools. And, you know, I had talking therapy along the way, and, you know, all different types of things along the way. But to where the science comes in is, you know, now again, I followed my path organically. And I love that I didn't know anything about it when I was experienced. It was completely experiential, and it was completely about me finding a way that felt okay in my own body, because I knew from birth what felt okay and what didn't. All I knew was the feel.
Right.
Now I was able, and I was educated, and I am, you know, again, an academic and educated, and I needed the vocabulary. I needed to find out, what is the science behind this thing? What is the science behind horses and why they affect people in a profound way? What is the science behind Reiki? Now we have so much research around this somatic experiencing, and, you know, the heart maths research that has come out, you know,
That's
it's just,
amazing.
I just go, oh, my whole childhood was validated in science. All my interactions with horses were validated in science, in some of this stuff that has come out. So, so for us, you know, when you need to, as a human, noodle on, you know, what theories and why and the scientific reasons, it's all there. But as a human from the heart, if you just allow yourself to be open and to feel, you know the answers. That's our intuitive mind, you know, we know the answers. But yeah, that human brain goes, oh, I really want to know why. And you can go and research the hell out of that stuff, and it's all there. It's all there.
No, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Have you researched any of the other models then? Like, are there some models that you enjoy that you seem are kind of like that they're similar to your own, or
Equine assisted models?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
know Leif Hallberg's been there.
Pardon?
Leif Hallberg has been down there with you,
Leif
right?
is amazing.
I love Leif.
There's so many
He was
amazing,
one of my teachers.
I know. There's
my
so many
postgrad,
amazing practitioners out there, and there's beautiful models and beautiful stuff. And I am not going to name drop and go, oh my God, I love this. Or I, you know, for me, if it feels right, I go with that.
Yeah.
And I'll pull in different bits of what I've read, of the beautiful literature that is out there from people like Leif, you know, and, you know, Linda Kahanov, and just so many pioneers in this field who have written beautiful research and beautiful models on how this works. And I just pull in bits and pieces of what resonates with me.
Right.
Because again, I can only go with feel, and you know, I try it when I'm alone in the paddock with my horses and go, if I apply this, how does that feel? How does that interaction feel? And I kind of mold from there. So there's no specific model or theory to answer your question that I adhere to, and I will continue to stay open, and I'm open to everything.
Well, that's fantastic.
But I'll go with what feels appropriate, right? And not just for me, because what feels appropriate for me when I'm interacting with a client might not be the right thing for them. And so it's just having bits and pieces in your toolbox that you can pull from when you're in a session. And I try and flow organically there and listen to the client and listen to the horses in that moment.
Oh, that's beautiful. And speaking of listening to the horses, how do you deal with burnout, like with the horses?
My own burnout, or horse burnout, or client burnout?
All of them, honestly, because it's important to recognize them. And how do you navigate that, like with the size of your herd? And like, how many horses do you have in your herd right now?
I only at the moment have 3. We had 4 at this property, and then Elle has another 3 or 4 on a property that she works out of, but they're different places. Mm-hmm. And we partner with other people, so we can go and work from other horse properties. But my horses, I've only got 3, 2 big ones and a little mini. Mm-hmm. I had a bigger one that we let go of during the COVID lockdown. So the three work well. The different sizes. One's pretty giant, the other's kind of medium, then I have the little mini. Burnout for me, look, I've gotten over the years, over the decades, very savvy at recognizing my own stuff.
Yeah.
And I recognize when it's a trauma response, and I have my own kind of personal ways of handling my stuff. Obviously, severe traumatic experiences, you know, post-traumatic stress, which I still suffer from, is a lifelong journey of managing and maintaining, you know, a level of mental health. So a lot of it is knowing yourself and knowing what works for you.
Yeah.
But triggers are triggers. So, you know, that's why they're called triggers. They come up when you least expect it.
Right.
You know, I spend a lot of time here with my animals. I do all my own feeding and all my own care. So I'm here in the morning and I'm here in the afternoon. So before work, after work. If I'm here for sessions, I take breaks for myself and for the horses too. And I give them a lot of freedom to choose to come in and not come in. So if one is like, hey, what's happening today? I'm like, oh, you want to be here with us? Let's work with you for a little while. You want to be here and partner for play, you know, we just call it play. And they'll tell you when they're done. They'll just be like, okay, I think I'm good now.
And they just walk away.
And we just kind of, you know, the tricky bit with that is during a group program, the groups can be quite intense. And even though I'm accustomed to being the frontline facilitator, I still get a bit of anxiety in like managing everyone else's emotions and the dynamic in the group in addition to horse dynamics.
Right.
And so and what we teach in our program, The Winds of Change, we do a little mini training in working with kids and horses. And that's coming up online, by the way.
I was going to say, and when is that coming up?
So that is next Sunday. So for us, it's the 20th. For you guys, for America, it's the 19th. Online, I've posted it in the Equine Experience International group. We start here at 8 a.m. Eastern Australia time, which for you guys, I forget. I forget which
for us so 8 a.m. On
it's like
Sunday.
4.
8 a.m. for you guys is hold on, give me a second. Say one. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for Pacific Standard Time, for Pacific Daylight Time.
I posted up. So we do a little mini training. There's a part 1 and a part 2. It's very experiential on just assisting facilitators or anyone who wants to get into this field. It's like, here's all the good stuff that's out there. Here's some great possibilities. This is how we work. And here let's practice some of this stuff and interacting. I mean, I guess, specialization is young people, children and young people and families. I've done decades of work in the community, non-horsey, but also quite a few years with horses and kids and families, and mainly teens. And so we got requests to run that online. And so we're just going to offer that because that's the day and age we're living in. But again, it's just an openness of what models are available, what models of certification are available.
Nice.
I now sit on the board of directors of CBEIP, so the Certification Board of Equine Interaction Professionals, so based in the US.
Nice.
But we're now obviously opening up internationally. So that's an independent body. And so for me, it fit for me to be certified through an independent organization rather than go, I'm a gala or I'm this or I'm that.
Sure.
It wasn't around being restricted by a model. It's about the opposite. It's about being open to all models and taking bits of what fits.
No, I love that. That's definitely the way I operate in general.
Yeah.
And how much is it for the course?
Oh, the course, it's only in US dollars, it's only $140. It's a 4-hour online training. That's 180 Australian. It's not a lot. We try to make everything super affordable so people can just have access. And then it's a 4-hour training. So it still is an experiential training. So we encourage the participants to be in the paddock with their horses, at the barn with their horses, so they can practice live. And I run everything here, even when it's a Zoom training, I'm always here with my animals. And sometimes that works well. And sometimes, you know, they just are like, I don't want to be in front of this computer, and they'll just walk off.
Oh, that's funny. And do you teach people how to do things virtually in that?
Well, no, not really. I'm not the best at virtual training of anything. I'm not the most tech savvy person. We can create a Zoom forum and we can create webinars, and that stuff's pretty easy to do. But in terms of me modeling how I operate,
how to put it all together?
We do talk about how to structure a business, right?
Because some people really struggle. Like you say, it's easy to put together a webinar and all these meetings, but a lot of people still struggle with that. I feel like you gotta give yourself a little bit more credit there. Come on.
That's a good question, right? And so I had a fantastic business management mentor when I was, because I'm not a business person. It's like, oh, I know how I can do this. I can facilitate these interactions. I had no idea how to structure stuff, and I still structure from the heart. And my business is it's more of a community-based social enterprise, because I still offer a lot of freebies in the community, and I always will.
Yeah.
Right. And I get these,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I get these business-minded people going, you need to charge for every single thing. And it's like, actually, I don't. If I feel I want to gift this away, I am. And
that's my right.
Money will come. The money will come. And we do still, our rates are still quite low on our sessions, and our group rates are still really low. And I know people are struggling financially with COVID and everything like that. But the money will come when you drive it from the heart, right? And we know our value. It's not about not having value. It's incredibly valuable what we do. But when you drive it with money in the forefront of your mind, your outcome is going to look very different. And there could be people making bazillion, matzah, whatever. Go make money if that's what you want to do. What's true for me is driving from here. And when the money comes in, I'm very, very grateful, you know, and we're getting more and more referrals that way. But yes, to again answer your question, we do encourage people and guide them on different ways to start a business here in Australia. And there's people that want to run it as a charity or a sole trader or whatever. And we'll give little tidbits around that. But it's less around business advice, because I'm not that gal. It's around structuring programs and sessions that hold the space effectively, knowing how to stay within your scope of practice. And this was a journey for me, because when I was running programs 15 years ago, I didn't even know that I needed, you know, a certification. I didn't even know it was a thing. Right. So I was unknowingly operating as a practitioner. I thought I was just being a youth work coordinator, right? Right. I was like, oh, I'm just running innovative alternative education programs. I can work with horses. I can work with snails. I can do whatever I want.
Snails.
Right?
I love it. Oh my gosh. I love slugs. Like, they're so talkative with their antennas. I mean, honestly.
Slugs. Let's do slug assisted learning.
My mom, she really hates slugs. So we have this conversation sometimes. I'm like, Mom, don't kill it. She's like, oh, they're going to eat the garden. I'm like, no.
Yeah. But, you know, when you talk about like marketing stuff, marketing's tricky for a lot of people. I'm going to do some slug marketing. That would be good.
Slug marketing.
You know, slugs could probably teach us a whole lot about slowing down the pace, girls. Yeah. You and I we have a lot of energy, you and I. If we were to facilitate something together. So maybe slug assisted learning. Let's slow that thing right down. Never mind. You can edit that part out of this conversation.
No, definitely that has to stay. People love the authenticity. They do. They do. They need light and levity right now so bad.
I know. But none of us are in this alone. You know, we're
Yeah,
all here with beautiful support people and mentors. And,
it's
you know,
true.
I have beautiful mentors, and I've held a lot of people up here on pedestals that I didn't know very well. And then you
Yeah,
realize that, wow, you have this long list of qualifications, but actually there's a few humanity bits that are missing. And so for me, my mentors have been really amazing humans who drive from the heart. And when the equine knowledgeable people also have that and also find their way into your life, well, then that's a true mentor for me in this field. So example, Carrie Lake, right? I
yeah,
didn't
she's a
know anything
fantastic
about
person.
Carrie, but you know, she came into my life and shifted my whole perspective. Thank you, Carrie, if you're watching this. You know, Marianne Evans, who I had on the live the other day, pioneer, you know, in this field, has been in the field for whatever 45 years. Such an authentic human being, you know, and other mentors. You know, my parents actually gave me all the skills I needed, right?
Yeah,
My dad, God bless him, right? Despite the traumatic experiences, and he had a disease that he was a victim to, right?
yeah,
Um, and mom held the space in a different way with like this badge of honor. You need to be honorable and have these strong values. We had this opposite stuff, but somehow I was able to take bits off this and bits off that. And I managed to emerge kind of okay out of all of that. Um, and recognize when I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I need to shift that because that's not coming from a good place.
yeah.
Um, but people like Carrie have taught me a different way and have given me vocabulary to verbalize what it is going on in here, and also to help other people,
That is
you
really
know.
beautiful.
So I'm grateful for all of those people along the way in my journey.
Oh, thank you so much for all of
Mm,
that. That's really beautiful.
my
Can,
absolute pleasure.
can you share just a couple of profound stories, for instance, from your LGBTQ plus community and like the people that have
Oh,
been sex trafficked and you know like some of and like and the eating disorders, like those three different that we don't necessarily hear that much about, so people
yeah,
can see
yeah.
the shift.
With the horses.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of my gals from the LGBT program, she's actually one of our assistants at the moment in the Cowgirl crew, Liz Diggins. Liz, yeah, came to the program in the first pilot of my LGBT program. So that's called Angels in the Wind. And I always offer this program for free because it's in honor of a young person that I supported for several years. He was gay and he passed away in a drowning accident. But Liz came to every program that we had on offer, and she was, "Can I come to this?" Yeah, come to this. And then we'd trial stuff, and we'd do just little one-on-ones with Liz, and she did a lot of beautiful work at Liberty because her energy was so open.
Yeah.
The horses that we had that would sometimes just turn their bums and walk away, right? They would just follow her. And I'll never forget, we had a program that was meant to be a group, and for some reason all the scheduling flopped and we ended up having only Liz that day. And
Yeah, how that goes.
it ended up just being a one-on-one with Liz, and she was so good with that. And we the activity was to, you know, have the horse follow you at Liberty over whatever obstacles, through a few things, through a few cones and over. And there was a jump that was already in the arena. And I said, look, just see how you go and just see how you go with this horse. There's a whole bunch of props in there. You could go through the props. You could do whatever you like. And so he ended up literally weaving around the cones, and she just had no idea that he was going to do this. So she was trying to connect, and it wasn't happening. And then there was a moment where she let go of expectation, and it clicked, and he just followed her around these cones, and the jump was right there. So it's like, Lizzie, you do whatever you want to do. And she just was like, you could see her go into her body, and she just took a leap over this jump, and the horse just leapt with her. He just followed her right over. And it was the most beautiful thing. And she, you know, now Lisa's a horse of her own, and she now works for us as an assistant, and she's got just beautiful energy for this kind of work. She's a pediatric nurse. So Lizzie, if you're listening, we're so grateful to have you on our team.
Awesome.
So that's just one example. And the young people, there's a steady group of Cooper's friends that come, and then we work with, yeah, just really closely one-on-ones. There's a very complex set of issues behind the scenes that can arise. And then there are other issues that are just young people being young people.
Right.
And there's a whole lot of, you know, we talk a lot about discrimination. You know, obviously it's a big thing that's out there in the media.
Right, with the Aboriginal folk there in Australia.
Yeah, and people of color and people of all different backgrounds, and the LGBT community are in that. There's a lot of, you know, discrimination that happens. There's a lot of bullying that happens in schools. It's a lot better now. There's more open conversations around it now.
Which is great that it's
which
starting
is
to open
amazing.
up so we can start to transcend
Yeah.
the experience.
Yeah. So that's a little example from our LGBT group. With trafficked women, gosh, I love working with this cohort because there's so much complexity in what they've experienced, and the severity of trauma. And it just helps you put your whole life into perspective. But the graciousness and the gratitude that they turn up with every minute, with the tiniest, you make a cup of tea for them, and they're just like, thank you so much. Like, they're just so grateful to be here and grateful to be alive. And I can resonate with that, because for me, I always defaulted as a kid to a place of gratitude. But really what that was every morning, oh my God, is everyone still here? Are we all alive? Cool. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the gift of life. So I know what that felt like, and I still feel that. I still wake up every morning grateful and go to bed every night grateful to be alive. And I had, you know, in my family, we struggled with suicidality, because when you need that pain to go away, sometimes the only way is out, and you creating a way out. Yeah. And there were several suicide attempts in my family, and we're all still here. And just, you know, gratitude of life. And so what these women bring to the table is gratitude for every moment. So the first interaction, when I first brought a group of women to interact with horses, many of them had never seen a horse before, ever in their life.
Yeah.
Which, you know, and one had said, I've only ever seen horses in books, never in real life. And the other said, I didn't even know what a horse was, you know.
Wow.
So to interact with these giant creatures that are so gentle, right? And it was just, and these women don't have English language skills. Most of them have very little English. So all of it is simplified down to very, very simplified words.
Right.
And I love that, because when you take words out of the mix, it's all about feel. It's all about somatics. It's all about sensory awareness. It's all about energy, right? And so and that was what we did initially, was just like, you can feel it, touch the horses. What does that feel like? You know, and they, you know, brush them. And we talked about the heart. We talked about how horses operate from the heart. and we talked about presence, and we then did a little leading activity, and then we clipped the lead rope and took the lead rope off. And, you know, and these horses were just, because again, that energy is full of gratitude and compassion and a zest for wanting to be there in that moment.
Right.
So grateful for that moment. Horses go, oh, I'm grateful to be here with you too. And they choose to follow. And one of the women, and this horse, it was one of Elle's horses that was following her. Again, we had very simple kind of obstacles set up, not obstacles, but, you know, cones or whatever was set up in the arena. And the horse just followed her around, and she was looking in disbelief. Oh my God, this horse is actually coming with me. It was just this like, this awe. And it was like, you are doing that. It's your presence. It's your heart that's serving as a magnet to bring that horse with you. And when she finished, I said, you know, how did you do that? And she was a French speaker, and she said, confiance, which means confidence. And so she, you know, for the probably one of the few times in her life, was literally so in her body, but that body language exuded confidence. Yeah. And even though she expressed it in her language, you know, we could see it opening up. We could see that moment of when she was like, ah, I got this. And that horse actually wants to be with me. So cool. And she just went, and, you know, and it's beautiful stuff. It's really, really beautiful stuff. And how it addresses trauma. Really, it's about presence. It's about letting go of the spinny stuff in your mind that puts you back there or makes you worry about the future. It's just sheer presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my friend, there's a question I'd love to wrap up every interview with, which is, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Oh, wow. I find you very inspirational.
Thank you so much. That's incredible.
Yeah. I'm loving watching what you do. Who inspire me are real people. Real people. It's not about names. It's not about name dropping, even though there's some amazing people out there in this field. Carrie Lake has completely inspired me. I'm so blessed to have Carrie in my life, to have met Carrie, to interact and play. And, you know, she shifts my world every time I hear her speaking. And it comes from such an authentic place. But the amazing thing about Carrie is she has the vocabulary. That's her gift. Yeah. She has the humanity and the heart, but she has the vocabulary to express it, to help us move forward in a way that makes sense. Yeah. And so if I had someone like Carrie when I was a kid or earlier on in my journey, oh my God, would have saved me all those moments of questioning, you know, myself and my journey. So Carrie inspires me. And Marianne, who you met the other day on the live, inspires me just in the wealth of knowledge that she has in her beautiful mind, but the heart, which is her vessel, that carries it. And there's such a humility about how she carries herself. And I love that. And I want to be Marianne when I grow up. I really do. Just, you know, if I had the energy to go and do a PhD and all that amazing stuff. And, you know, she's trained in all these models, but she holds none up there on a pedestal. Right. You know, she's got a gala training, which is brilliant, but she said, that's just a starting point, you know, and she's so humble. She's got 2 PhDs, but she holds that with such grace and humility. You know, what she has in her head is so highly academic, but she's such a real raw human. And you know, my parents inspire me. And I say parents, it used to be, oh, my mom, you know, but my dad has created the awareness for me of what it truly means to move through trauma, what post-traumatic growth really is. And I used to hold my trauma as my shame, and then I moved to holding it as my superpower. Look at me, I can change the world through my trauma. But it's not even about that at all, right? It's about being so okay with all of your experiences and knowing that that was a part of my journey. And my dad was a teacher in that, right? If I didn't have what we went through, I wouldn't have known what it means to move through it.
Yeah.
And who inspires me? My brother, Paris, such an inspiration to me. I have two brothers, Paris and Nick, and we all, experienced our life in different ways. We're all there for it. And we all received it in a different way and externalized the trauma in a different way. But Paris was my guiding light, and he restored my faith in men. It was never really lost because I always had him there. And, moving through his own trauma through shared experience, but different way of manifesting.
Yeah.
And so complex, but that he's still here in this world, and that he's such a great dad to his kids, and that, we chose not to, some people who have had traumatic experiences happen to them then become that as parents to their own kids. And we chose not to. It was the furthest thing we wanted to be as parents to our kids. And he's a real model of that, of no, I don't want to be like that. I'm actually gonna always love you, and he's that parent. And he's always there for me, even when I'm being an idiot.
We all have our moments. No judgment.
He's always going to be there for me. But yeah, look, I can mention a million other names of mentors along my journey, but it's the real humans that are always going to be there for you at the end of the line, no matter how many. And we've got, all my family's on 3 continents now. And so, my cousin who was there at the beginning of the journey, and we played with little Breyer horses. And I just wanted to be her, right? I just wanted not to have my life. I wanted to have her life. And I look at her, and she's probably one of the most inspiring women I've ever had the pleasure to call my, my family member and mentor, and beautiful human, beautiful mom, but operates from here. Always. And I go, oh my God, okay, I'm not operating from the heart then, and we're meant to be non-judgmental. And I just have this little voice in my head that goes, ooh, you're judging now, you're judging. Pull yourself back in, right? And she is like a horse. She's never judgmental. It's always open. It's always open-hearted.
That's beautiful.
It's real people like that inspire me.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. It's really such a blessing to get to surround yourself with so many inspirational people. I mean, I'm very blessed too. There's so many people around, and you inspire me. And it's just, I feel honored every day with the people I get to engage with. Yeah. So Eleni, thank you so much for getting to be on the show tonight, and for everything that you've offered. And yeah, we'll look forward to it.
Pleasure. Thank you. And it's, it's never easy to, to be in this kind of online space and to share kind of, your story and your family stuff. And I always try and treat that with integrity as best as I possibly can. But it is the true part of the journey, I think, for most of us, from so many of us in this field. There's personal stories that got us here, and it's not even about telling it. It's, some people are very good and wish to share all the details, and that's fine. And I'm getting better at bringing more of the detail out, the detail that I think might help someone else.
Yeah, because that's what it's really about. It's not about our ego or being seen. It's really just about providing hope for somebody else that's struggling, so that they don't feel so alone.
Absolutely. Really, that's all it is. And so I just wish to thank you for, inviting me here to share little bits of my story and to just do the beautiful work that you do in connecting, beautiful people from around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, and you're welcome. It's always a pleasure, my friend. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everyone out there in the world watching in the future, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye.
Thank